We just want a peaceful holiday, my sister said, after convincing everyone not to invite me. So I shut down everything I paid for her insurance, her kids' tuition, even the shared family plan. She can call Mom. I'm not picking up. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my desk. Subject line, Thanksgiving plans, family update. I should have known something was wrong from the formal tone alone. Our family group chats were usually chaotic strings of emojis and half-finished sentences, not carefully worded announcements sent from my mother's email address. After careful consideration and discussion with everyone involved, we've decided that this year's Thanksgiving will be kept small and intimate. We hope you understand that sometimes families need time to reconnect without added stress. We'll miss you and hope to see you at Christmas. I read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. They'd uninvited me to Thanksgiving, the holiday I'd been hosting for the past 4 years at my house because nobody else had space for 18 people. The holiday where I'd spent over $2,000 last year alone on food decorations and making sure my nephew's dietary restrictions were accommodated. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer, my colleague who'd become a close friend over the past year. Coffee at 10. You look like you've seen a ghost. I grabbed my phone and headed to the break room, forwarding her the email without commentary. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through it. Wait, your family just disinvited you from a holiday you usually host. Apparently they want something small and intimate this year. Jennifer set down her coffee with more force than necessary. Small and intimate is code for something. Did you have a fight with someone? I scrolled back through my messages looking for clues I might have missed. There were the usual family exchanges, nothing that seemed particularly heated. My sister Charlotte had asked me about contributing to my niece Sophie's school fundraiser 3 weeks ago, and I'd sent $200 the same day. My mother had called last month asking if I could help her figure out her new tablet, and I'd driven over on a Saturday morning to set it up. Everything seemed normal. Then I saw it. A group chat I wasn't part of, visible only because my Aunt Paula had accidentally screenshotted it and sent it to the wrong thread before quickly deleting it. I'd seen it for maybe 5 seconds before it disappeared, but the preview had shown Charlotte's name and the words she always makes everything about her. Anyway, that had been 2 weeks ago. I convinced myself I'd misread it in that brief glimpse. My hands shook as I typed out a response to my mother's email. Then I deleted it. Typed another one. Deleted that too. Finally, I just wrote, "Okay, hope you all have a nice time." Jennifer watched me with concern. "You're just accepting this after everything you do for them. What else am I supposed to do? Show up uninvited and make a scene?" "No, but you could at least ask what's going on. This is bizarre behavior." I wanted to. Every part of me wanted to call my mother and demand an explanation. But there was something in the careful wording of that email, the way it felt rehearsed and coordinated, that told me this wasn't a miscommunication or an oversight. This was intentional. 3 days passed. Nobody called to explain. Nobody texted to check in. The family group chat continued with plans about who was bringing which dishes, what time everyone should arrive, whether they should do potluck style or have Charlotte's husband Eric grill a turkey. I watched it all unfold in real time, a silent observer to my own exclusion. On Friday evening, my mother finally called. I stared at her name on my screen for 4 rings before answering. "Sweetheart, I got your email response. I wanted to make sure you understood that this isn't personal. How is uninviting me to Thanksgiving not personal, Mom?" She sighed, and I could picture her rubbing her temple the way she did when she was stressed. Charlotte thought it would be better this way. She's been having a really hard time lately, with the kids and everything with Eric's job situation, and she just felt like having a quieter celebration would be less overwhelming. Charlotte doesn't even host Thanksgiving. I do. I have for 4 years. Well, she's hosting this year at her place, and honestly, honey, you know how you can be sometimes. You have very specific ideas about how things should go, and Charlotte just wanted something more relaxed. The words hit me like a physical blow. How I can be. Mom, I spend weeks planning that dinner to make sure everyone's comfortable. I bought a separate turkey breast last year because Sophie doesn't like dark meat. I made 3 different vegetable sides because Dylan won't eat anything green. How is that making it about me? You're getting defensive, which is exactly what Charlotte was worried about. Look, it's just one holiday. We'll all be together at Christmas. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall for an hour. The sun set outside my windows, and I didn't bother turning on the lights. My phone buzzed periodically with messages I didn't check. Jennifer had asked me a valid question. What else was I supposed to do? The answer came to me slowly, piece by piece, as I mentally cataloged everything I'd done for my family over the past 5 years. When Charlotte's transmission died 3 years ago, I paid for the repairs. $4,000 because she couldn't afford the $800 monthly payment on the new car she wanted, so I'd fix the old one instead. When Sophie needed braces last year, I covered half the cost because their insurance didn't pay enough. That was $3,000. I'd been paying for Charlotte's phone plan since she'd gotten married because Eric's credit was too poor to qualify for a good rate, and adding her to mine was easier. That was $35 a month for the past 6 years. I opened my laptop and started making a spreadsheet. The numbers were staggering. Charlotte's car insurance, which I'd added to my policy 2 years ago because it saved her money, $120 monthly. The kids' dental insurance, which I'd insisted on getting for them because Charlotte kept skipping their checkups, $45 monthly. Sophie's piano lessons, which I paid for directly to the instructor because Charlotte said they couldn't afford them, but I didn't want my niece to miss out on something she loved, $200 monthly. Dylan's soccer league fees and equipment, roughly $150 per season, 2 seasons a year. Then there were the one-time expenses. The new refrigerator when theirs broke last spring, $1,800. Sophie's birthday party last year at that trampoline place because Charlotte wanted to do something special, $600. Christmas presents for both kids that I'd supplemented because Charlotte's budget was tight, roughly $800 annually. The security deposit when they'd moved to a bigger apartment because Eric's parents wouldn't help, $3,000. Sophie's private school tuition supports $6,000 annually for the past 3 years, $18,000. The total came to just over $71,000 across 5 years. Over $71,000 for a family that had just uninvited me to Thanksgiving because I was too overwhelming and made everything about me. I closed my laptop and picked up my phone. My Aunt Paula had sent me a private message an hour ago. I don't know what happened between you and Charlotte, but I want you to know I think this whole thing is wrong. Your mother shouldn't have let Charlotte push her into this. If you want to talk, I'm here. I appreciated the sentiment, but talking wasn't going to change anything. They'd made their choice. They decided I was disposable, that my presence was negotiable, that whatever narrative Charlotte had spun about me was more important than showing me basic respect. I could accept that. What I couldn't accept was continuing to bankroll people who thought so little of me. Monday morning, I called my insurance company. The representative was cheerful and helpful. As I explained that I needed to remove someone from my policy. Of course. Is this a family member who's getting their own policy? Yes, exactly. She's got her own situation now. Doesn't need to be on mine anymore. Perfect. I can process that today, and the change will take effect on the 1st of next month. You should see a decrease in your premium since you'll only be covering your own vehicle and liability. Charlotte's car insurance canceled. Her policy would lapse in 3 weeks unless she set up her own coverage. Given Eric's driving record and their zip code, I estimated she'd be paying about twice what my family discount had been giving her. Next was the phone plan. That was even easier. A simple call to customer service, a request to remove a line, and it was done. Charlotte's phone would stop working at the end of the billing cycle in 2 weeks. The dental insurance required a form, but the insurance company had it on file. I filled it out during my lunch break, removing both Sophie and Dylan from my supplemental plan. They'd still have whatever basic coverage Eric's job provided, but the good dentist they'd been seeing didn't take that insurance. They'd have to find someone else or pay out of pocket. Then I called Sophie's piano teacher. Mrs. Patricia Morgan had been teaching kids in our neighborhood for 30 years, and she was exactly as kind as you'd expect from someone who dedicated her life to sharing music with children. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear Sophie will be stopping lessons. She's made such wonderful progress this year. Should I send the final invoice to Charlotte then? Yes, please. I won't be covering the costs going forward, so she'll need to arrange payment directly with you. There was a pause on the line. I see. Well, I do hope Charlotte will continue with the lessons. Sophie has real talent. I hope so too, actually. But that was Charlotte's responsibility now, not mine. Dylan's soccer league was trickier because I'd prepaid for the fall season, but I sent an email to the coordinator explaining that I wouldn't be covering the winter or spring seasons. The coordinator responded with disappointment, but understanding, mentioning that they had a scholarship fund if finances were an issue for the family. The biggest item was the tuition support. Sophie attended a private school that cost $18,000 annually. Charlotte and Eric paid $12,000 themselves, stretching their budget to the breaking point to do it. I'd been covering the remaining $6,000 because I believed in giving my niece every advantage. I called the school's billing office and explained that I'd been helping with tuition, but would no longer be able to continue that support. I understand circumstances changed, the registrar said, professional but concerned. We'll need to notify the family that the balance will be their responsibility going forward. Does the family know you're discontinuing this support? They will when they receive your notification. All right. I should mention that if the tuition isn't paid in full, we typically work with families on payment plans, but if arrangements can't be made by the end of the semester, enrollment for the spring term could be affected. That's between you and the family. I'm no longer involved. I hung up feeling dizzy. This was really happening. I was actually doing this. The family group chat had been quiet most of the day, but around 3 o'clock, messages started coming in. Charlotte had shared photos of the kids at the park. My mother cried when she saw me pulling me into a hug that lasted longer than comfortable. Eric nodded at me from across the room, not quite friendly but not hostile either. A truce, perhaps. Dinner itself was easier than I'd expected. Paula had seated us strategically, putting me between my father and aunt, giving Charlotte and me physical space while keeping us at the same table. The food was good. The conversation stayed light, and nobody mentioned Thanksgiving or money or any of the landmines that had defined the past 2 months. After dinner, while the kids were playing with their new toys in Paula's basement, Charlotte found me in the kitchen doing dishes. Can I help? Sure. We washed and dried in silence for a few minutes before she spoke again. I know things aren't fixed between us, but I want you to know I'm trying. I'm working on not letting my insecurity turn into resentment. I'm working on not trying to fix everyone's problems with money. We both have work to do. Then I handed her a wet plate. Yeah, we do. The drive home that night, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not happy exactly, but less burdened. The boundary I'd set had been painful and messy and had damaged relationships that might never fully recover. But it had also forced everyone, including me, to confront patterns that had been unhealthy for years. Jennifer called the next morning to hear how it went. So are you back to being the family ATM? No, Charlotte knows that's done. We're starting from scratch, figuring out what our relationship looks like when it's not built on me bankrolling her life. Good, you sound better. I feel better. Still guilty about some of it, but better. In January, my father paid me the remaining $500 he owed. Charlotte sent me a text asking if I wanted to get coffee, just the two of us. We met at a cafe halfway between our places and talked for 2 hours about everything except money. She told me about Sophie's new friend at school, about Dylan's obsession with space, about how she was thinking of going back to school herself for a nursing degree. I told her about a promotion I was up for at work, about the trip to Ireland I was planning for spring, about the volunteer work at the community center that I'd continued after Thanksgiving. It wasn't the relationship we had before, but it might become something more honest. Sophie's school sent me a thank you card in February. Apparently, Charlotte had mentioned during a parent conference that I'd previously helped with tuition, and the principal wanted to express gratitude for my support of Sophie's education. The card sat on my refrigerator for weeks, a reminder of both my generosity and my limits. My mother called in March to ask if I'd host Easter. I said no, but offered to contribute a dish if someone else wanted to organize it. She sounded disappointed, but agreed. Eric's parents ended up hosting, and I brought a lemon cake that everyone complimented. The family group chat remained active, but the dynamic had shifted. Charlotte stopped posting vague complaints about money. My mother stopped volunteering my help for things without asking me first. My father sent me a text on my birthday thanking me for the loan forgiveness on the remaining amount. I'd eventually told him to just keep it, that I didn't want money complicating our relationship anymore. In April, I got the promotion. Jennifer took me out to celebrate, and over champagne, she asked me if I regretted how I'd handled everything. Sometimes I wish I'd set boundaries earlier before it got to the point where I had to burn everything down to make a point. But I don't regret standing up for myself, even though it hurt people. Staying in that pattern would have hurt me more in the long run. By summer, Sophie was back in piano lessons. Charlotte had found a community program that was cheaper than Mrs. Morgan's rates, and Sophie seemed happy enough with a new teacher. Dylan had rejoined soccer through a scholarship program the league offered. Eric had gotten a better job with actual benefits, and their financial situation had stabilized somewhat. We weren't back to how we'd been, and we never would be. The foundation had cracked too severely for that, but we were building something new in its place, something where I wasn't responsible for solving everyone's problems and they weren't comfortable excluding me when I became inconvenient. My Aunt Paula told me privately that I'd done the whole family a favor even if they couldn't see it yet. Charlotte needed to learn she couldn't treat you like a backup plan. Your mother needed to learn she couldn't enable Charlotte at your expense, and you needed to learn that you're allowed to say no. She was right. The whole situation had been a brutal education for everyone involved. One evening in late July, about 8 months after the infamous Thanksgiving email, Charlotte called me unexpectedly. "Hey, are you free? Next weekend, Eric's parents are taking the kids camping, and I thought maybe we could do something. Just us. Maybe drive out to that vintage market you're always talking about." Just us. Just us. No kids, no husbands, no mom hovering and trying to orchestrate bonding. Just sisters hanging out. I smiled despite myself. Yeah, I'd like that. Cool. And listen, I was thinking about next Thanksgiving. Would you want to co-host with me? Split the cost, split the work, actually do it together this time instead of you doing everything while I just show up. Something in my chest loosened. I'd like that too. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine watching the summer sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The past year had been one of the hardest of my life, full of confrontation and boundaries and uncomfortable truths. But I'd survived it. More than that, I'd learned that my presence in my family's life had value beyond my bank account, that I deserved to be included not because I was useful, but because I mattered. The road to that realization had been expensive in every sense of the word, financially, emotionally, relationally. But sitting there watching the sun disappear behind the buildings, I couldn't quite bring myself to regret the journey. My phone buzzed with a text from the family group chat. Sophie had sent a video of herself playing a new song on the piano, her face bright with concentration and joy. Charlotte's message appeared below it. "So proud of this kid." I added a heart emoji to the message and set down my phone. Things weren't perfect. They might never be perfect, but they were honest now, and that was worth something. That was worth everything. Dot commented with heart emojis. Eric's mother, who'd been added to the chat last year, posted something about bringing her famous green bean casserole to Thanksgiving. I muted the chat and got back to work. That evening, I went through my financial records more carefully. There were other things I'd forgotten about. I'd lent my father $2,000 4 years ago to cover a car repair when he was between jobs. He paid back half and then stopped mentioning it. I'd never pushed because he was my father, and it seemed petty to demand money from family. I sent him a polite email. "Hi, Dad. I've been going through my finances and realized you still owe me $1,000 from that loan in 2021. I understand if you need to make payments, but I'd appreciate if we could set up a schedule to repay the balance." My mother's tablet, the one I'd spent a Saturday setting up, had been purchased on my Amazon account with the understanding that she'd pay me back. She'd given me $200 of the $500 cost and then forgotten about the rest. I sent her a Venmo request for $300 with the no tablet balance from October 2024. Then there was the family Netflix account, the Spotify family plan, and the Amazon Prime membership that I paid for and shared with everyone. I changed all the passwords and removed every family member except myself. I felt sick doing it. My hands actually trembled as I clicked the buttons and filled out the forms. This wasn't who I was. I'd never been the person who kept score or demanded reciprocity for generosity. I'd helped my family because I loved them, and because I could afford to, and because seeing them struggle when I had resources felt wrong. But they'd made it transactional by treating my presence, my actual self, as negotiable. They'd reduced me to a checkbook, someone useful for financial support, but not important enough to include in family gatherings. Jennifer called that evening to check on me. "How are you holding up?" I canceled everything. The insurance, the phone plan, the tuition, support, all of it. "Good. What did they say?" "Nothing yet. Most of it won't take effect for a couple weeks. The phone plan ends mid-November. The insurance on the last day of the month. The school will notify them about the tuition within a few days. They're going to lose their minds." Probably. I'm kind of terrified, actually. But you couldn't keep funding people who don't want you around. You're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are. The first response came on Wednesday morning. Not a call, not a message to me personally, but a post in the family group chat that I'd unmuted out of morbid curiosity. Charlotte's message appeared at 9:47 a.m. "Can someone explain why Sophie's school just sent us a bill saying we owe the full tuition balance? They said the person who was covering part of it withdrew their support. Mom, Dad, did you know about this?" My mother responded within minutes. "What? No, we don't pay Sophie's tuition. Charlotte, how much are they saying you owe?" $6,000 by the end of December, or she can't enroll for spring semester. Where the hell is this coming from? I watched the dots appear and disappear as multiple people typed and deleted messages. Finally, my father chimed in. "Maybe you should call the school and sort this out. There must be some mistake." Charlotte's next message made my stomach clench. "There's no mistake. Someone's been paying part of her tuition, and now they stopped. The only person with that kind of money to throw around is... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. My mother's call came 5 minutes later. I didn't answer. She called again. I declined it. Then came the text messages. We need to talk about what's going on with Sophie's school. Please call me back. This isn't funny. Whatever you're upset about punishing a 9-year-old isn't the answer. Your sister is beside herself. Please pick up the phone. I turned off my notifications and went to a meeting. When I came back an hour later, there were 7 missed calls from my mother. 3 from Charlotte, 2 from my father, and a long text message from Eric that I had to scroll through twice to believe was real. I don't know what my wife did to piss you off, but taking it out on our kids is a new low. Sophie loves that school. She has friends there. She's thriving academically. If you're mad at Charlotte, be an adult and talk to her instead of sabotaging our daughter's education. This is petty and vindictive, and honestly, I expected better from you. I stared at that message for a long time. The audacity of it was almost impressive. I'd spent $6,000 every year to keep his daughter in a school he couldn't afford, and now I was petty for stopping. I typed out a response. I'm not sabotaging anything. I simply can't afford to cover expenses for people who don't want me in their lives. Sophie's education is important, which is why her parents should prioritize paying for it. His response was immediate. What are you talking about? Nobody said we don't want you in our lives. The Thanksgiving email said otherwise. If I'm too overwhelming to have at family holidays, I'm too overwhelmed to maintain my current level of financial support. It's really that simple. The dots appeared and disappeared for a full minute before his next message arrived. That's what this is about. Charlotte just wanted a calm holiday for once without all the drama. You're really going to hold that against a kid. I'm not holding anything against Sophie. I'm making financial decisions based on my circumstances, just like Charlotte made social decisions based on hers. Everyone has to live with their choices. I blocked his number after that. My phone was buzzing constantly now, a swarm of incoming messages that I couldn't bring myself to read. I knew what they'd say. I was cruel. I was selfish. I was punishing children for adult disagreements. I was making everything about me again somehow. The next morning, my phone plan notification reminded me that Charlotte's line would be disconnected in 1 week. I felt a small, mean surge of satisfaction before the guilt crushed it. This wasn't me. I didn't enjoy hurting people. But every time I considered backing down, I remembered that email. We've decided that this year's Thanksgiving will be kept small and intimate without me. After years of hosting cooking planning and paying for everything from the turkey to the decorations to the special dietary accommodations. Jennifer met me for lunch that Friday, taking one look at my face and ordering wine for both of us, despite it being barely noon. You look exhausted. I haven't been sleeping. My family is imploding, and I'm the one who lit the match. No, they lit the match when they excluded you. You just stopped pretending it didn't burn. Charlotte left me a voicemail. She was crying. She said I'm destroying her family over a misunderstanding, that she never meant to hurt me, that she's sorry if I felt excluded, but I'm taking things way too far. Did she actually apologize for excluding you? Or just sorry you felt excluded? I thought about that. The second one. Then she's not sorry about what she did. She's sorry you reacted. There's a difference. My Aunt Paula called that afternoon. Unlike everyone else, she didn't sound angry, just tired. I heard about what's happening. Charlotte called your mother in hysterics about the tuition and the insurance. I can't keep paying for everything when they don't want me around. I know. And for what it's worth, I think Charlotte needed this wake-up call. She's been taking you for granted for years. Your mother, too. Honestly, they got comfortable with you being the family bank, without considering what that meant for you emotionally. Mom thinks I'm punishing Sophie on purpose. Your mother thinks a lot of things. Right now, she's overwhelmed because Charlotte is in her ear constantly, and you know how Helen gets when Charlotte's upset. But deep down, she knows the situation is more complicated than you just being vindictive. I don't feel good about any of this. You're not supposed to feel good about it. Setting boundaries with family is painful, especially when you spent years not having any. But just because it hurts doesn't mean it's wrong. That weekend, the messages continued. Charlotte sent me a long text about how hard things had been for her, how Eric's job had cut his hours, how she was barely keeping their heads above water financially. She said she'd only wanted a simple Thanksgiving without the pressure of my high standards and expectations. She said she'd never asked me to pay for Sophie's tuition or their insurance or any of the other things I'd offered, and it wasn't fair to hold it over her head. Now she was right that I'd offered. Every single time I'd been the one to suggest helping. But that was because Charlotte had perfected the art of the indirect ask, the carefully worded complaint that made it impossible not to step in. I don't know how we're going to afford Sophie's school next year. Wasn't technically asking for money, but it functioned the same way. And maybe I had built this dynamic. Maybe I'd encourage their dependence by always being available, always willing to help, always stepping in to solve problems before they could even fully materialize. But they'd been happy to accept that pattern as long as it benefited them. The phone line disconnection happened on a Tuesday. Charlotte's frantic messages started around lunchtime, sent from Eric's phone because hers had stopped working. My phone is shut off. The company says I'm not on the account anymore. Did you really remove me from the plan? How am I supposed to contact people? How am I supposed to get calls from the kids' schools? I didn't respond. Later that evening, she sent another message. I had to sign up for a new plan. It's costing us $75 a month we don't have. Are you happy now? The insurance cancellation processed at the end of the month, with coverage officially ending at 11:59 p.m. on the last day. 3 days into the new month, Charlotte's car got flagged by an automated license plate reader for driving without insurance. Eric called from his phone, leaving a voicemail that was equal parts angry and desperate. A cop pulled Charlotte over this morning. She got a ticket for driving uninsured. She had no idea her coverage was canceled until the officer told her. The ticket is $500 and she has to prove she has insurance by next week or her license gets suspended. We have 2 kids who need to get to school. I need to get to work. How could you do this without even warning us? My mother's voice message came an hour after Eric's. Please call me back. I know you're angry, but this has gone too far. Charlotte is having a panic attack. She can't afford to lose her license. She can't afford any of this. Whatever happened between you two, this isn't the way to handle it. Please. I listened to every message. I didn't delete a single one. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Jennifer had asked me what else I was supposed to do. I still didn't have a perfect answer to that question, but I knew what I wasn't going to do anymore. I wasn't going to absorb my family's financial burdens while they treated my presence as optional. I wasn't going to fund their lifestyle while they gossiped about me in group chats I wasn't included in. I wasn't going to be the bank that was always open but never invited to family dinners. Thanksgiving was next week. I'd already made plans to volunteer at a soup kitchen downtown, something I'd wanted to do for years, but never had time for because I was too busy brining turkeys and making 3 kinds of pie and setting elaborate table settings that nobody really cared about except me. My father finally called. His voice was different from the others, less accusatory, more confused. Kiddo, I got your email about the loan. I know I owe you that money. I should have paid it back already. I'll send you what I can. But I need to ask you something. What's really going on here? Your mother says you're trying to financially destroy Charlotte over a holiday invitation. That doesn't sound like you. They invited me to Thanksgiving, Dad. After I hosted for 4 years, after I spent thousands of dollars making sure everyone was comfortable, they didn't even tell me to my face. Just sent a group email about wanting something small and intimate and hoped I'd understand. He was quiet for a moment. That's why you're cutting off the money. I'm not cutting them off to be cruel. I'm making a choice about where my resources go, and I can't keep funding people who make it clear they don't value having me around. Charlotte says she never asked you for any of that money. She didn't have to ask. She just had to complain about being broke in front of me and wait for me to offer. It was a system that worked great for everyone until I decided to stop participating. You're right that Charlotte took advantage. Your mother and I both knew that. But walking away from Sophie's tuition right in the middle of the school year seems harsh. Harsher than uninviting me to a family holiday via email. He sighed. No, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. This isn't about right or wrong anymore, Dad. It's about me deciding I'm worth more than being a checkbook that gets excluded from family events. If that makes me the villain, I can live with that. After we hung up, I cried for the first time since the whole thing started. Not delicate tears, but the ugly, body-shaking kind that leaves you hollowed out and exhausted. I cried for the family dinners that would never happen, for the relationship with my niece and nephew, that might be permanently damaged, for the version of myself that had believed unconditional generosity would earn unconditional love. My mother tried calling twice more that week. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that progressed from pleading to frustrated to angry and back to pleading. The last one came the day before Thanksgiving. I don't understand how we got here. Charlotte made a mistake with that invitation. Yes, but she's apologized. She wants to make things right. But you're being so stubborn and honestly so cruel. Those children don't deserve this. Please just come to Thanksgiving tomorrow. We can work everything else out, but don't let this rift get any bigger. Call me back. I deleted the voicemail without responding. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up early and drove downtown to the community center where I'd signed up to volunteer. The organizers put me on serving duty, ladling mashed potatoes and green beans onto plates for a steady stream of people who thanked me with genuine warmth. An older woman with kind eyes told me I had a beautiful smile. A little boy asked if he could have extra rolls, and I gave him 4. Around 2 o'clock, during a lull in service, I checked my phone. The family group chat had been active all morning. Photos of the dinner preparation, Charlotte's kids helping Eric set the table, my mother's contribution of homemade cranberry sauce. They looked happy, small and intimate, just like they'd wanted. There was one message directed at me, posted an hour ago by Charlotte. I know you're not here, but I want you to know we miss you. I'm sorry for how everything happened. I hope you can forgive me eventually. I stared at that message for a long time. It was the closest thing to a real apology I'd gotten, but it still didn't acknowledge what she'd actually done wrong. Missing me now didn't change the fact that she hadn't wanted me there in the first place. Being sorry for how everything happened was passive voice nonsense that avoided taking responsibility. I turned off my phone and went back to serving food. December arrived with a cold snap that frosted the windows and made the city look clean and magical. My mother sent me a check for $300 with a note. I should have paid you back when I said I would. My father transferred $500 with a promise that the other $500 would come after his next paycheck. Charlotte's messages became less frequent and more resigned. She'd figured out the insurance situation, though her new rates were eating into their budget significantly. Sophie's school had worked out a payment plan for the remaining tuition, but Charlotte mentioned having to cut back on other expenses to make it work. Dylan's soccer was on hold for the winter season. Sophie's piano teacher called me directly in mid-December. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, dear. I wanted to let you know that Sophie had her last lesson this week. Charlotte called to let me know they can't afford to continue right now. My chest tightened. I see. I offered to reduce my rate, but Charlotte said they need to focus on the school tuition. I just thought you should know. Sophie cried when she played her last piece for me. She's such a talented child. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table feeling like the worst person in the world. Sophie losing piano lessons was a direct result of my choices. Yes, Charlotte had created the situation, but I'd chosen the specific consequence. Jennifer reminded me over drinks that week that Charlotte could have kept the lessons if she'd prioritized differently. She's choosing to keep Sophie in an expensive private school instead of finding a cheaper school and maintaining the music lessons. That's her choice, not your responsibility. Sophie's 9 years old. She doesn't understand any of this. No, but she will someday. And hopefully she'll understand that her parents' financial decisions aren't your fault. Christmas was approaching, and the pressure to reconcile was mounting. My Aunt Paula called to ask if I'd be attending Christmas dinner at her house, the compromised location that had been selected after the Thanksgiving disaster. Everyone will be there, including Charlotte and her family. Your mother really wants you there. Did Charlotte ask for me to be invited? Or did Mom just assume I'd come? Paula hesitated. Your mother insisted on it. Charlotte didn't object if that's what you're asking. So Charlotte's fine with me being there now that her insurance costs doubled and she can't afford Sophie's tuition. How convenient. That's not fair. She's been trying to reach out to me with non-apologies and passive voice statements about being sorry for how things happened. She still hasn't actually acknowledged that excluding me was hurtful and wrong. Maybe she doesn't know how. Maybe she's embarrassed. You're her little sister, and she's supposed to be the one who has everything together, and instead she's financially dependent on you. That's hard to admit. Then she should work on admitting it instead of expecting me to just get over being treated like I'm disposable. I didn't commit to Christmas. Part of me wanted to go, wanted to see my niece and nephew open presents, wanted to feel like part of a family again. But another part of me knew that showing up would signal that everything was forgiven, that we could all go back to how things were before, and I didn't want to go back. The before version of our relationship had been built on an unsustainable foundation where I gave endlessly and they took thoughtlessly, and nobody questioned whether that was healthy or fair. On December 20th, Charlotte showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the peephole standing in the hallway looking nervous and cold, and I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity won again. What are you doing here? You won't answer my calls or texts. I needed to talk to you in person. I stepped aside to let her in, though I didn't offer her a seat or anything to drink. She stood in my entryway looking around at my apartment like she was seeing it for the first time, even though she'd been here dozens of times before. Nice place, she said finally. Charlotte, why are you here? To apologize. Really apologize. Not the half-assed versions I've been texting you. She took a breath. I was wrong to exclude you from Thanksgiving. It wasn't about the holiday being overwhelming. It was about me feeling like you were judging me. Judging you for what? For not having my life together the way you do. You have this great career and this nice apartment, and you're always so capable and organized, and I'm over here, barely keeping my head above water, constantly asking you for help. It made me feel small, and instead of dealing with those feelings like an adult, I convinced myself that you were the problem, that you made everything about you, that you had these impossible standards that we'd all be more relaxed without you there. I felt my anger deflate slightly, replaced by a complicated mixture of hurt and understanding. So you uninvited me because you felt inadequate. Yes, and because Mom always compares us and I'm always coming up short. And because Eric's mother was going to be there and I didn't want her seeing the dynamic between us, the way I'm always depending on you for stuff. I wanted one holiday where I felt like I had my life together, by excluding me. By excluding you, which was cruel and stupid, and I'm sorry. Really genuinely sorry. Not sorry you felt bad, but sorry that I did something intentionally hurtful, because I was in my own head about my insecurities. It was the apology I'd wanted, and hearing it felt both validating and exhausting. Thank you for saying that. I also need you to know that I never intended to take advantage of you financially. Every time you offered to help, it felt like a gift. I didn't realize I was building my whole life around expecting those gifts to keep coming. That's on me. I should have been more aware. You should have. But I also should have set boundaries instead of just giving and giving until I resented you. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, Charlotte said, I don't expect you to start paying for things again. I know I screwed that up. We're figuring it out on our own. Eric picked up some extra shifts and we're making the tuition payments work. Sophie's devastated about piano, but we'll get her back into it eventually. The guilt surged again, but I pushed it down. That's good that you're figuring it out. Will you come to Christmas? I miss you. The kids miss you, and I want to try to fix this if you'll let me. I'll think about it. After she left, I called Jennifer and recounted the conversation. She listened quietly, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. Do you believe her? I believe she's sorry. I believe she felt insecure. I don't know if that's enough. Enough for what? To go back to how things were. You can't go back. That version of your relationship was broken. But you could build something new, something with actual boundaries this time. I thought about that for days. On Christmas Eve, I texted my mother. I'll be at Paula's tomorrow. I'm bringing dessert. Her response was immediate and effusive. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so happy. We've all missed you so much. See you tomorrow. Christmas Day was awkward at first. Charlotte and I circled each other carefully. Too polite, making too much effort to include each other in conversations. Sophie ran up and hugged me the moment I arrived, chattering about school and her friends and how she hoped Santa would bring her roller skates. Dylan followed more cautiously, giving me a shy smile before showing me the Lego set he'd gotten. Eric's parents were there, along with a few extended relatives I didn't see often. The house was loud and warm and smelled like cinnamon and roasted meat. For a while, it almost felt normal. Dinner was served, and we all sat around the long table Paula had set up in the dining room. Charlotte caught my eye a few times, offering tentative smiles. My mother kept finding excuses to touch my arm or shoulder as she passed behind my chair, like she was reassuring herself that I was really there. After dinner, while the kids were occupied with their new toys, my mother cornered me in the hallway. I'm so glad you came, she said softly. This means so much to me. I'm here, I replied. That doesn't mean everything is fixed. She flinched slightly, but nodded. I know, I don't want to lose my family. I didn't either, I said more gently than I felt. Charlotte joined us a few minutes later, looking nervous. Can we talk, she asked. We stepped into the guest bedroom and closed the door. She leaned against the dresser, twisting her hands together. I meant what I said the other night, she began. I know I hurt you. I know I messed up. I'm not asking you to go back to paying for things or fixing our problems. I just want a chance to be sisters again. I want that too, I said, but it has to be different. I know, she said quickly. It has to be different. There was an awkward pause, then she laughed softly. This is weird, isn't it? It is. But maybe weird is better than how it was. Maybe I agreed. The rest of the evening passed without incident. We opened presents, played board games, and watched the kids collapse into sugar-fueled giggles. When it was time to leave, Sophie hugged me again and whispered, I'm really glad you came. Driving home that night, I felt drained but cautiously hopeful. Nothing was magically resolved, but the open hostility had softened into something more manageable, something that might, with time and effort, turn into a healthier version of what we'd lost. January came quietly. My father sent me the remaining $500 he owed, along with a short text, apologizing for taking so long to repay it. I thanked him and meant it. Charlotte and I texted occasionally, mostly about neutral things. Recipes a show, we'd both watched photos of the kids. We avoided money entirely. My mother seemed to be trying too. She asked before assuming I'd help with things. She stopped volunteering my time or resources without checking with me first. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. In April, Jennifer and I celebrated my promotion with dinner at a new restaurant downtown. Halfway through dessert, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel lighter," I admitted. "Still sad sometimes, still guilty, but lighter." "Do you regret it?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. "I regret that it had to get so bad before anyone paid attention," I said slowly. "I regret that the kids got caught in the middle, but I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret learning that my worth isn't tied to what I can provide." She raised her glass. "To boundaries." I clinked mine against hers. "To boundaries." By summer, the family dynamic had settled into something new. Not perfect, not close in the way it once pretended to be, but honest. Charlotte and Eric were managing on their own. Sophie was thriving at school. Dylan was back in soccer through the scholarship program. I was still part of the family, but I was no longer the safety net underneath everyone else's lives. And for the first time in years, that felt okay. I spent more time traveling, more time with friends, more time doing things simply because I wanted to. I volunteered regularly at the community center, finding a quiet satisfaction in helping people who didn't expect anything from me beyond the moment. One afternoon in late summer, my Aunt Paula called me. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For choosing yourself. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't pretty, but it was necessary." "Thank you," I said, my throat tightening. "Your family is better for it, even if they don't all realize it yet." I thought about that after we hung up. The past year had changed me. It had stripped away illusions I didn't know I'd been carrying and forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about love, obligation, and self-worth. It had cost me money, peace, and a certain version of my family that I'd clung to for too long. But it had also given me something invaluable, the knowledge that I was allowed to say no, that generosity without boundaries wasn't kindness, and that being included in someone's life should never be conditional on what I could give them. I wasn't the family ATM anymore. I was just me. Christmas Day was awkward at first. Charlotte and I circled each other carefully. Too polite, making too much effort to include each other in conversations. Sophie ran up and hugged me the moment I arrived, chattering about school and her friends and how she hoped Santa would bring her roller skates.